Alright, so I've been interviewing for Yale as a Yale alumni, and I have some tips for you because I've been going undercover and I want you guys to succeed. More formally speaking, I'm a part of it's called the Yale Alumni Schools Committee. And the way it works is that Yale alumni volunteer and we're assigned based on specific regions. And I'm not going to breach my contract, but here are some tips that I have for a college admissions or Yale or Harvard or whatever interview. I've already interviewed a few of y'all for single choice early action, but now that regular decision is coming up, here's some tips. And the first tip is to not do this. I tried to kiss my interviewer, or my chances ruined. So, towards the end of the interview, I had a strange urge to go in for a kiss. Enough said. Next. Alright, the second tip is that depending on the college that you're applying to, they'll most likely ask you if you're open to get interviewed, and I would say yes all the time. Especially after doing these interviews myself, I realized that if your interview goes well, your interviewer can really put a good word in for you. But you gotta keep in mind that all other aspects of your application weigh more heavily, and especially if you can't get an interview based on your region or limited availability, this will not affect your admissions decisions at all. The interview is another great opportunity for the admissions office to get to know you from a different perspective, just like your teacher recommendations, your guidance counselor recommendations. For my position, I'm essentially responsible for writing up a report to the admissions office, so once again, another perspective can provide more context for the admissions office to make a more informed decision on whether or not you're a good fit for the college. The next tip is to once again keep in mind that admissions interviews are really just based on availability. So if you don't get an interview, don't panic at all. Literally, for example, I could have rejected this interview offer. It really is just based on volunteers and how many alumni are opening up themselves for an interview option. So as long as you indicate yes, that you're open for an interview, whether or not you get one at the end of the day really is out of your control, so rest assured, calm down, it's fine. So the next tip is for the interview itself. Before you start the interview, just literally I had some boogers in my nose, which is why the deep breath didn't sound that clear, but basically just take a deep breath, calm down, relax, genuinely treat it like a conversation. The interview really shouldn't be this robotic thing where I ask you a question, then you have to provide this very clear and concise answer. If that was the case, then Yale would just send you another form to answer out formal specific questions. Of course, the specific interviewer will vary from person to person, but give them the benefit of the doubt, calm down, they genuinely just want to have a conversation with you and get to know you better. The next tip is a little bit of a sneaky one, but try to schedule the interview to your advantage. For example, right now with the post-pandemic world, I had to specifically ask whether the student wanted to do Zoom or in person. If you have a really good internet connection and if you're more confident in doing an online interview and it's more convenient for you, then do that. If you sort of have an in-person charm and you want to be able to talk to them human to human, then do that. There's not necessarily a disadvantage or an advantage. Just choose what is most comfortable and works best for you. Be realistic with yourself, but also at the end of the day, it really is up to the interviewer whether or not they want to do it online or in person, but just make sure you're communicating that, and also use your strengths. The next tip is to showcase your academic interests as authentically and as natural as possible. A few days before the session, start journaling out and thinking about what are the academic interests that are most important to you, why are you interested in them, how have you proven that you're interested in them, whether the interviewer is going to ask it in a formal way or not. Eventually there's going to come a point where you have to talk about your academic engagements. The next tip goes the same with extracurriculars. Try to talk about as authentically and as naturally as possible your extracurricular engagements. So once again, I would recommend journaling out which extracurriculars are the most important to you, thinking about this a few days beforehand, so that once you're actually having the conversation, you can naturally talk about what excites you about these extracurricular engagements, how do you plan on doing these maybe in the future in college, etc., etc. The next tip is to be composed, confident, comfortable, but also professional, but also friendly in a way. I know this is a lot jammed in one tip, but honestly, be relaxed, make sure your chin is up, your posture is corrected, be yourself, be friendly, but also maintain a good sense of professionalism. This is not a job interview. They know that you're a student, you're a high schooler. Be yourself, but be professional. The next tip is to make sure that you're conveying and talking about the school's qualities when you're talking. For example, one important quality that Yale has is intellectual curiosity. So maybe you can bring this up and show how you're intellectually curious in your academic pursuits, for example. Generally speaking, if you're a good fit for the school, you're going to sort of naturally do this anyways and have this natural enthusiasm for the school's qualities, whether most of the students in the school are humble, intellectually curious, collaborative. Try to showcase this naturally and connected whenever you're talking about your personal life, your academics, your extracurriculars. And this level of enthusiasm connects to the next tip, which is to genuinely be interested in the school and ask a lot of questions. The applicants that stood out most to me were the ones who actually did their research, who had genuine enthusiasm and interest and asked a lot of questions about Yale, their culture, things that they were interested in, but also students who are very open-minded about it all. And the last tip is literally just to have fun and make sure you follow up with your interviewer. It's literally just an alumni like me who just graduated. Well, it could also be an older person in class of 70 or whatever. But at the end of the day, there really isn't nothing to lose, only to gain, except if you do that first tip that I told you not to do in the beginning. But for the most part, you have so many other parts of your application. This is really just the cherry on top, the icing on the cake, the bread on the butter on the bread. But have fun with it. I wish you the best. I want you to succeed. So please let me know if you want any other videos like this. Comment down down below. Use the description for other helpful college resources during this time. But I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.